on behalf of the family, we are so proud to have you here to join with the family during this their time of grieving, mourning, as well as a time of celebration. And to each and every one of you who has come, the family has been encouraged by the phone calls, the visits, the dropping in and bringing of food that you have shared with them. It is a challenge indeed to take 1 hour, and in 1 hour, cover 79 years, 2 months, and 12 days of a person's life who has contributed so much to each and every one of us. It's impossible. But one thing Joe left with each and every one of us, and that is the knowledge that do not let the impossible keep you from doing what is possible. So what we will do within the next hour is to do what is possible, and what is possible is to give insight into the man. Daddy Dulin, Grandpa, Joe, and as the guys who he would meet on breakfast on Wednesday morning knew, he had all other kinds of names. Names for them and names that they shared among one another. But this was the Joe that we all know, and today we want to celebrate that Joe. So as folks come forward and share with you parts of Joe, Joe in the community, Joe in organizations, Joe as an educator, we do ask that you think about Joe, and think about Joe in the context of what it is that Joe did that you might inspire you. Joe was a leader, and the one thing that leaders do is to inspire, motivate, and get people to follow or to go along with them. Look around you. Look around you. You see the number of lives that he touched. Each and every one of us in this room have the opportunity to continue the legacy of Joe Dulin. And hopefully as we listen to one another, as we share memories, you will hear something that may inspire you to go forth from this place today, not next week, but today, to make a difference in the lives and in the communities in which you live. Thank you. That's okay. We want to bring forth legislative representatives, and the Honorable David E. Rutledge, Michigan State Representative, is going to come.
At 10 minutes after 3 o'clock on the 24th of October, I was sitting in a room, lots of people in a meeting, and my inside breast pocket started to vibrate. Just as many of you are sitting there with your phones on vibrate now. I pulled the phone from my pocket and saw a name flash on the screen. I was in a meeting, so normally I would say, well, I'll just pass this call. But I knew the person, and I said, this may be important. So I excused myself, walked out into the lobby, and answered the call. The person said to me, Dave, I'm calling you because I heard that Joe Dulin passed. And can you verify? I had not heard. And so now you know why I can tell you the exact time. Because when something like that happens, I mean, it's a moment in time that you remember. The conversation continued to evolve, and he said, Dave, I'm really struggling with this. He said, because the next call I have to make is to my son. And see, he said, I'm struggling with that because my son is in New Orleans. And he said, you know him, you know the struggles that my son went through. My son credits Joe Dulin was saving his life. And now I've got to tell him that Joe's gone. That was the gist of the conversation, and we hung up, and then things started to unfold. I want you to know that in all of the conversations and interactions that Joe and I had, he understood one thing, and that is success doesn't come from acquiring, achieving, or advancing. It comes from growing, one day at a time, personal growth. And that's what Joe helped us do. He staked out his claim with education and kids, helping them one at a time grow. But we all benefited, parents, and you'll hear much more about his involvement with parents. And so it is on behalf of all of his friends and the legislature, and that they have authorized me to pass on to the family, Yvonne, this tribute. And I'm not going to go through this, but I would like you to know that it is signed by Senator Rebecca Warren, State Representative Gretchen Driscoll, State Representative Jeff Irwin, State Representative Adam Zemke, and yours truly, David Rutledge. It reads in part, in special tribute, therefore, this document is signed and dedicated to offer our words of praise as a memorial to Joe Dulin. May his family, many friends, former students and colleagues find comfort in their faith, their memories of this fine man and the full life that he lived. And if there's any legacy that Joe has left, that legacy lives in the hearts and minds of each of us. And then it becomes our responsibility to pass it on.
Today, I have official duties in presenting a proclamation in honor of Joe on this day, but I also wanted to note something personal, perhaps David and I share. I hadn't met Joe until about 17 or 18 years ago, and I had a son, a young person in my life who was struggling. You know, the educational system sometimes doesn't adapt to a kid who is the round peg trying to fit in the square hole. And we were having trouble getting his attention. And I learned about from Joe Dulin and Roberto Clemente, and I went over and met Joe, talked to him a bit, first time I met him. And we moved our son from Pioneer to Roberto Clemente. And I can tell you something, and you all probably know this about Joe, is maybe when nothing else worked, and some young people can be awful stubborn, Joe can get their attention. And you would begin to see those lessons play out at home. But I tell you, he could get their attention, and sometimes those lessons took a while, and it may be a couple of years later, and you see something happen in that young person's life. For a while during my time as mayor, while Joe was still at Roberto Clemente, I would occasionally go over there. And, you know, he had this time where he met with all the students, and I would bring someone from city government, the police chief, somebody from IT, one of our attorneys, somebody who could serve as a good role model. And I could see Joe working with the young people there, and the things he did, the things he told them, and the respect that he showed to them, and that they reflected back to him. A lesson there for all of us. With this proclamation, I'm going to read it for you today, and it goes on a little bit. but I learned some things that I didn't even know about Joe. A proclamation honoring Joseph Dulin, 52 years of dedicated service, November 1, 2014. Whereas Joseph Dulin has been a visionary leader and champion of educational excellence for over 52 years, serving as a teacher, a coach, principal of St. Martin de Porres High School in Detroit, Michigan, where he became the first African-American lay principal of a Catholic high school in the nation. He was the founding principal of the Roberto Clemente Student Development Center in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Whereas Joseph Dulin has been known as an influential presence to youth and a father figure for many of the students he mentored throughout his career. He was a longtime advocate for parental involvement in education, including his service as founder and executive director of National African American Parent Involvement Day, which has been celebrated annually in 47 states in the nation and as far away as Canada, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, Japan, and Australia, with an anticipated 20th anniversary commemoration coming up in February 2015. Whereas Joseph Dulin has been a respected community advocate, as demonstrated by his participation in a delegation traveling to Rome for an audience with Pope Paul VI to discuss concerns affecting African American Catholics. Service on a special advisory team, presidential candidate Al Gore, and his appointments to the board of directors and other leadership positions of numerous community-based organizations providing educational, civil rights, and health services. Whereas Joseph Dulin has served as an excellent role model and an inspiration to many, with his life story and accomplishments being chronicled in a wide variety of local and national television programming, newspaper and magazine publications, books, a film documentary entitled Bridging the Gap, the Joseph Dulin Story, numerous awards and commendations, as well as the Joseph Dulin Community Day celebrated annually in Washtenaw County since 2006. Whereas Joseph Dulin continues his commitment to educational excellence through the Joseph and Yvonne Dulin Scholarship Fund, which he established with his wife Yvonne Dulin, that provides college scholarships annually to African American high school graduates in Washtenaw County with disadvantaged circumstances, or to those who have demonstrated a commitment to volunteer service or educational goals. Therefore, I, John Heftia, the Mayor of Ann Arbor, Michigan, do hereby proclaim November 1, 2014 as a day to acknowledge and celebrate the life of Joseph Dulin for his accomplishments during the last 52 years of faithful and dedicated service.
Vaughn, I am so honored that you asked me to speak this morning. I was so very sad to hear the news of Joe's passing. I adored Joe Dulin. I loved the wisdom he imparted about serving others and giving until it hurts. I loved talking college basketball with him. I loved his smile, that big laugh, and the twinkle in his eyes. I loved watching him interact with students at Roberto Clemente at the weekly rap sessions. I loved how he could finagle money out of me in the Community Foundation in the early years of the National African American Parent Involvement Day. I love how he fought for the beautiful new Roberto Clemente building that opened in 1994. I met Joe in 1963 when he joined the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation Board of Trustees, on which he served for 6 years. Joe sat on our executive, scholarship, and grant distribution committees and was an advisor to our youth council. I worked closely with Joe on a variety of community foundation and community-related initiatives for over 20 years. He was a force for good. Joe challenged you. He brought a valuable, grounded perspective and rather outspoken voice, one that others could not provide. Given his work and wide range of affiliations throughout our community, Joe provided a lens in which to better understand the African American community, their needs, and the unique challenges they faced. 20 years ago, and along with fellow trustees Barbara Meadows and Willis Patterson, Joe was instrumental in establishing the Community Foundation's African American Endowment Fund, which awards grants to improve the physical, economic, social, and educational conditions that affect the quality of life for African Americans in the Ann Arbor area. The fund was the very first of its type to be established at a community foundation in Michigan. This fund will be making a difference in our community forever. With generous support, the fund has grown, awarding nearly $75,000 in grants to date that have made a real difference. Joe believed the fund would work to the overall good of the entire community, for good and forever, today and tomorrow. It's fitting that this service is in a school auditorium. Joe filled many roles in supporting youth and as an educator. He was a role model and a mentor, a stand-in father for many who did not have one at home. Joe made a personal difference in the lives of so many young people. Joe was often that one caring adult in a young person's life, a singular difference in helping to shape a positive path. Now we all know that behind a great man is an even greater woman. Yvonne Dulin was Joe's partner in all things. They both believed that no one achieves success without the help of others. To that end, they established the Joseph and Yvonne Dulin Scholarship Fund in 2009 at the Community Foundation. The Scholarship Fund's purpose is to support African American students with priority given to students who demonstrate disadvantage and need and a commitment to community service. Since its inaugural year in 2011, the scholarship has been received by 6 students, and that scholarship fund will award year in and year out. In my 22 years at the Community Foundation, I have crossed paths with many involved citizens. I can say unequivocally that very few, in my opinion, have come close to Joe's dedication and willingness to do whatever it takes to get a job done on behalf of others. May compassion, generosity, and determination shine just a little bit brighter in each of us, because together we walked a part of Joe Dulin's path.
Inviting me to speak at this celebration today. To you and your children and grandchildren, we're extremely sorry for your loss. Joe was a longtime member of the Huron Valley Ambulance Board of Trustees, serving in that role for 15 years. Everyone understands here that HVA responds to emergencies, but people don't know much more about us. As a community nonprofit organization, we are led by volunteer leaders, and Joe was one of our leaders. Board members are recruited because they bring with them some type of life or work experience. We have doctors, attorneys, accountants, hospital leaders, and others on our board. Joe was recruited because he was an educator. We train hundreds of young people each year to become EMTs, and Joe helped us be successful in doing that. But I also found, and this will come as no surprise to anyone here today, that Joe brought a keen interest in staff diversity as well as dignity for everyone that we serve. Board members give guidance, running a stable business, providing great patient care, treating people with compassion and respect no matter what their station in life. Joe did that, but he also had a special interest in our employees. Yvonne, you took one for the team so many times when Joe brought you to an awards banquet or to our winter staff party. Yvonne actually likes to gamble, we found out. We had a casino night and we couldn't get her away from the table. Your attendance was the best, and our staff respected both of you for taking the time to be with them. When you called to say that Joe passed away, there was much sadness in our office. Everyone loved your husband and your father, your grandfather so much. HVA was one of the many projects where Joe thought he could make a difference. We are a better organization because of him, His principles and values will continue with us for a long, long time. God bless him for making such a difference in so many people's lives. Thank you.
On behalf of my colleagues from the whole Washington County Board, I'd like to extend our condolences to you, Yvonne, and to all of your grandchildren and all of your family, and in fact to our whole community.
Would you please speak closer to the mic?
Sure.
Thank you.
We have suffered a great loss, and we will miss Joe tremendously. I feel like in hearing all the stories that we've gotten to hear today, in hearing all the stories that we have today, I've only had the opportunity to work with Joe for 3 years, and I feel like I've gotten the short end of the stick here. So I'm pretty disappointed right now. But Joe and I got to work on Community Action Board together. For those of you who don't know, the Community Action Board is a board of the county that works to provide all of the safety net programs for folks in our county in need. I remember the first day that I walked in, and Joe, who had been there for 19 years already, welcomed me with this incredible smile, and as someone said, twinkle in his eye, it certainly was there. But then, that twinkle, it just grew, and he started questioning us. Well, what about this? And what about this? And I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. Like, he is not taking the status quo. And it was fantastic. So Joe was this constant teacher. As many of the students are here, he also taught all of us. And he demonstrated his passion in so many ways. He had his willingness to fight for those without a voice, those without power, and those who have been left out. And he taught us, again, through words and actions, that the status quo is something to always question. It's to always challenge, and as Joe did in many, many ways, to disrupt. So to honor Joe, about 5 years ago, the Community Action Board established Joe Dulin Community Day. As many of us have gone to that and been there, that the celebration of this community has also helped to bring back the resurgence of the Ipsy Black Arts Festival. And that's where we get to showcase our local entertainment and food and family fun. And we do all of that in conjunction with offering folks the ability to see all the community resources that we have. Now, the location is not to be missed. That location of that festival is right adjacent to the Perry Child Development Center and the Park Ridge Community Center, places where Joe went and worked and made a difference every single day. So Joe's legacy continues to live on, and we've heard about how that is, and it's our responsibility, every single one of us, I think, to leave this auditorium and go and continue and pledge to continue to have his legacy live on, even though he isn't with us here today. So in honor of Joe, like the mayor of Ann Arbor had, I too have a proclamation to read from the county commissioners. It's a proclamation of honor and appreciation to the memory of Joseph Dulin for his services to the citizens of Washtenaw County. Whereas Joseph Dulin, along with his wife Yvonne, founded the nationally acclaimed National African American Parent Involvement Day to inspire parents to participate and be more involved in their children's education. And whereas Joe's passion for education and improving the lives of students across the Ann Arbor area was undeniable and an inspiration to all who seek a career in education. And whereas often known for his no-nonsense attitude with both parents and students and staff, his renown was so great as to inspire a movie about his life, Bridging the Gap, where he was part drill sergeant, part psychiatrist, part motivational speaker, and part Walmart greeter. For anyone who has had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Dulin during his life, the portrayal of him was on the mark. Whereas, among the many accomplishments in his career are his time as advisor to Vice President Al Gore, becoming the first African-American principal of a Catholic school in the United States, the creation of the Joseph and Yvonne Dulin Scholarship Fund, awarded the MLK Junior Humanitarian Award from Eastern Michigan University. And whereas Roberto Clemente for Center for Academic Success, arguably Mr. Dulin's crowning achievement, was established in 1973, where he personally hired the staff and built the philosophy that he is known nationally for today. The school serves.
It's an honor for me to have been asked again to lend my voice to the growing choruses of voices who are paying tribute today to a great man and leader whose legacy is large. Joe had big hands and an even bigger heart. For me, when I stopped to think about what I could say in a very short amount of time, I went back to the story before the founding of NAPN, when Joe was at the Million Man March, and he heard a call to action. Now, here's a person who had contributed an entire professional career to helping young people. And yet at the Million Man March, he walked away and said, there was a message for me. There was a call to action for me because there was more work to be done. And I hope, as you've heard from so many other speakers, that each one of us today internalizes that same message. That there's a call to action for every one of us, regardless of where we are in our career, regardless of where we are in our life, because Joe represented that and embodied in his person that dedication and drive and commitment for children. When I talked to my people at Washington ISD and asked their thoughts about Joe, I heard all sorts of different comments, from pioneering to visionary to passionate to committed to persistent and tireless. Joe was one in a million, truly, and he left a lasting impact in education. So on behalf of the entire education community, we express our condolences, but also our commitment to continue the legacy of Joe Dulin.
It's with our deepest sympathy, we would like to wish condolences to the Dulin family as Brother Dulin has transitioned into Omega Chapter. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated was founded on 4 cardinal principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. Manhood. My grandfather never took any mess, and he always stood for what he believed in. Scholarship. An educator for 50 years, he valued it and preached the importance. Perseverance. Infamously known to fight through all life struggles, breaking down barriers. And uplift, the greatest at it. Grandpa, I love you. And I will never forget what you taught me.
To Yvonne and the rest of the Dulin family, and to all who love Joe Dulin, good morning. If there was a job description for American hero, not many of us would qualify, although there would be many applicants. John Ruskin, a prominent social thinker in the 1800s, said, "I believe that the first test of a great man is humility. I don't mean by humility doubt of power, but really great men have a curious feeling that the greatness is not of them, but through them. And they see something divine in every other man and are endlessly, foolishly, incredibly merciful." And that was Joe Dulin, who saw himself as an instrument of change and who should be seen by us as a great man who saw the divine in others because the divine was in him. As such, he was an American hero in our midst for his entire adult life. What makes a hero and what makes a great man? Joe Dulin had great strength and ability. He showed courage. His life started ordinary. Over tremendous odds, he transformed it and committed it to excellence. He fearlessly performed a great civic duty through his education innovations and became a leader in the struggle for human rights. And as the first black principal for Catholic schools in this country, at a nearly all-black high school in Detroit in 1967, Joe Dulin demonstrated that he was willing to take the bullet for his kids. He didn't consider how he would look or what people would say about him if he militantly insisted on our rights to education equality. Like a true hero, he only considered the consequences if he did not insist on our rights. And we affectionately called him Daddy Dulin. He was our hero. But he also frightened us. My sister, Joanne Roberts, who started at DePorres in 1969, says he was no nonsense, strict and scary. But the first man in her life who really talked to her and listened and cared and was accessible and remembered her 40 years later. Joe Dulin had the knack and the talent to look at each of us and not just see an ordinary child or a bad child. And he made us believe, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service.
My Lord, my Lord.
And so Daddy Dulin served and became our role model for greatness. He did that by educating ordinary people and convincing us that we can all do extraordinary things over the course of our lives. I am convinced that his plan, his goal, his purpose, as John Ruskin wrote, was to see the divine in all of his students that he encountered and to coax and elicit greatness from each of us. He walked the halls of DePorres, he nudged, he prodded, he told boys to pull up their pants or button their shirts. He would ask about parents and siblings. He would ask if homework was done and why not. He cared deeply about a school and pupils facing the influx of alcohol and drugs and unwed high school mothers in the aftermath of the 1967 riots. He was always there. He was the missing father figure for many, including me. Whose families and neighborhoods were disintegrating before our eyes. But Joe Dulin was a model for all of us, a living, breathing formula for success. And he intuitively knew that part of what he had to do was fill the gaps for us, help navigate those who were rudderless and lacking anchors and self-esteem. My classmate and friend Wesley Cloyd said that Joe Dulin appeared bigger than life. Though as we reminisced about high school a few days ago, it occurred to us that Joe Dulin was only in his early 30s then, not much older than we were. But he appeared so wise and so poised and so powerful, and we were in total awe of him. Yes, he was bigger than life, I think but faith is, or should be, endless, but it is never foolish. American folk hero Mark Twain said that we should try to keep away from people who belittle ambitions. Small people always do that. But the really great can make you feel and see the greater possibilities for them. If Daddy Dulin had been around to pull up their pants, to make them feel that they could become great. Daddy Dulin was an American hero who never once ran into a burning building to save a life, but who nonetheless was the lifeline for countless of us who sit here today and for thousands of others. He never doubted his power, but he never misused it. But he endlessly, foolishly, and incredibly merciful and with faith showed us that we were born with potential, with ideas, with dreams, and with futures. That we were born to greatness, as the poet Rumi wrote. The late football running back legend Walter Payton said, "When you're good at something, you'll tell everyone. When you're great at something, they'll tell you."
Hey!
Today, Joe Dulin, the beneficiaries of your heroism tell you that you were supremely good and beautiful. You were divine. You were simply great. You were our hero. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you very much. One thing that each one of us has to do is to be able to see the divine in one another. We have to see one another for the potential that we have. Wow. And she talked about Joel standing in the gap, Daddy Dulin standing in the gap, or Reverend standing in the breaches. We all have, from time to time, a need to stand in the gap, to help someone along the way. Joel lived that. Joel lived that. We now want to invite Jelaine Franklin Wilson, another former DeForest student, to come.
All right.
The students of St. Martin de Porres will remember his gifts, his challenges, the things that he taught us, and what he wanted us to do as individuals for years to come. We know him as Daddy Dulin. The students of St. Martin de Porres, and being from the first graduating class, that was tough for me because he was not that far from my age. But I have called him Mr. Dulin all of my life. I have never been able to say Joe, and he's encouraged me to do that all of my life. He served as principal to families. Some families at St. Martin de Porres had as many as 11 students, and he met the challenge of helping those families, each and every one of those children, pay their tuition if their parents could not afford to do so. For my family, that was 5, but we had 11 children in one family to be served by St. Martin de Porres, and we did for many years to come. How did a man like this, with so many challenges, touch so many lives? As I look around the room, there's a lot of pride in knowing Joseph Dulin. He's touched so many people that everybody wants to be a part of what's going on today. What he taught us is to think for ourselves, independent thinking, stand by our beliefs, embrace challenges, be different, set high goals, to be honest and to have integrity, to fight for what you believed in and not be intimidated. He believed in unity for our family, for the de Porres family, all for one, including himself and the faculty. In athletics, St. Martin de Porres was no slouch.
That's right.
We celebrated many, many championships. De Porres reveled in basketball, football, and track. And many times we were challenged not only by Catholic schools in the suburbs, but we were also challenged by our local public schools. Central High School in particular was right down the street, and here are these young Catholic athletes trying to outdo us. And every time they came to our door, they were ready to fight. And Joe Dulin stood in front of us and said, if you fight them, you're going to have to fight me. But don't think Joe Dulin was just about education. He was about discipline. I hear tales of, and I say I hear tales of, a paddle. Many students experience the paddle. I didn't have that opportunity. And I mentioned that to Mr. Dulin just a couple months ago. I said, Mr. Dulin, I don't remember you paddling.
For us to be strong people, even though he's not here,
it is incumbent upon all of us to draw from his strength, from his memory, from his work, and to continue this fight. We got 114 custodians that are no longer in this district. Many of them were black, brown, poor white folks. You know what I mean? Every single cut and every single thing that happens seems to affect the same people that Joe fought for 42 years. Okay, Mr. Charles here is telling me to get off the stage. I can get long-winded about Joe, but I am here to tell you that as a soldier for Joe, I will do everything in my power and within my reach, because Joe's reach was long. I got a message from Tripoli, Libya the other day, asking about Joe. I will do everything in my power and in my reach to do what's right by these kids, to make sure that they have what I had, and we're gonna make it right for them. I love you. If all the Roberto students would stand up, and please just give a great big hand for the students. That's power.
After he retired, he came by the barbershop periodically, at least 2 or 3 times a week. And we had a lot of discussion, and Joe did not meet no stranger. Everybody knew Joe, and everybody knew where Joe stood. He wasn't a person that would tell you one thing and do another. So it was a pleasure.
Fortunately, no one listens to me. Powerful, thought-provoking prayer by Joe. We had big fun. We really enjoyed each other. These breakfasts were relaxing and somewhat cathartic. The camaraderie was great because our experiences are similar, but in different situations. Ideas and important information are shared and discussed, like health issues, Medicare, pensions, and investments. Joe was a very significant, important member of our Wednesday morning breakfast group. His contributions were many, specifically black pride, which all of our members had. He was a very proud black man. He was proud of being black.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, for inviting me to speak. 39 years ago, this fall, I took a drive to the middle of nowhere to write an article for the Detroit Free Press Sunday magazine about a school named Roberto Clemente. I knew nothing about the school other than it was named after one of my favorite baseball players. I intended to stay for a day, and then I met Joe Dulin, and I stayed for a month. Joe Dulin was simply the most inspirational educator I have ever encountered anywhere. He knew every student in that school, and he knew their families as well. But more importantly, he possessed that unique ability to make every student feel like they were the most special person on this planet. In fact, after school, when I would question him, interview him about various students, I would ask him about the student who had anger issues, or the young woman who was pregnant,